Picture a Saturday morning in suburban America. The garage door opens, sunlight hits polished metal, and a massive car rolls out like it owns the whole block. Kids stare. Neighbors notice. Adults pretend not to, but they do. In the 1950s, cars were not background objects. They were part of the neighborhood drama. Some were elegant, some were excessive, and some looked like they escaped from a science fiction movie. Today, we call them strange. Back then, people called them progress. And hidden inside that optimism were 10 cars so odd, bold, and over the top that they still turn heads 70 years later. 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk. The 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk looked like the kind of car that belonged outside a country club or parked under the glowing sign of a roadside steakhouse on a Friday night. Its long hood, low roofline, and aggressive stance made ordinary neighborhoods feel slightly more glamorous, which mattered deeply in a decade where appearance was tied to optimism and status. People did not just drive this car, they watched other people notice it. That feeling became part of ownership itself. Today, efficiency quietly sells the car. Back then, style was the argument. The Golden Hawk reflects a moment when Americans believed the future should look exciting the instant it pulled into the driveway. 1959 Chevrolet El Camino. The 1959 Chevrolet El Camino confused people the moment they saw it, and that was part of the appeal. It had the front of a flashy coupe and the rear of a pickup truck, as if America could not decide whether it wanted work, leisure, or attention more. Families used it for hardware runs, weekend drives, and small business errands, but owners also liked the fact that neighbors stopped to stare when it rolled past. In the 1950s, practicality did not need to look boring. Today, vehicles are separated into careful categories. Then, one car could try to do everything at once. The El Camino captured a country experimenting with personality through machinery, long before branding became part of everyday life. 1951 Mercury Monterey. The 1951 Mercury Monterey carried the smooth, low look that defined so much of post-war American cool. Its rounded body and heavy chrome gave it presence even when standing still, which is one reason custom car culture embraced it so strongly. Teenagers, mechanics, and weekend hobbyists treated the Monterey like a blank canvas, lowering suspensions, repainting panels, and turning ordinary transportation into rolling self-expression. Today, customization is often hidden inside software menus and trim packages. Back then, the body itself carried the personality. The Monterey reflects a decade when Americans wanted their cars to say something visible about who they were before they ever stepped outside. 1958 Edsel Corsair. The 1958 Edsel Corsair arrived with enormous expectations, huge advertising campaigns, and styling so unusual that people still argue about it decades later. Its vertical grille made the car instantly recognizable, which sounded like a strength until Americans began reacting with confusion instead of admiration. Families visited dealerships curious to see the future, only to discover a car that somehow felt too strange even for a decade obsessed with bold design. Some owners defended the Edsel passionately, while others treated it like a national joke. Today, companies carefully test every design decision through endless research. Back then, Detroit still believed dramatic ideas could reshape public taste overnight. The Edsel reflects a decade so optimistic it sometimes mistook spectacle for certainty. 1957 Ford Skyliner Retractable. The 1957 Ford Skyliner Retractable felt less like transportation and more like a mechanical performance people gathered around to watch. With the push of a button, the steel roof folded itself into the trunk through a complicated sequence of motors, hinges, and moving panels that seemed almost magical in suburban driveways. Children stared at it. Neighbors paused conversations to watch it operate. Owners proudly repeated the process just because someone nearby had not seen it yet. Today, car engineering is mostly hidden behind quiet software and sealed systems. In the 1950s, technology was supposed to perform in public. The Skyliner reflects a culture deeply in love with invention, especially when invention looked dramatic enough to stop traffic before the car even moved. 1955 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. The 1955 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz represented the kind of success many Americans dreamed about during the booming post-war years. Covered in chrome, fitted with sweeping tail fins, and trimmed with rich interiors, it was designed to attract attention long before it reached the curb. People associated it with celebrities, executives, and the growing fantasy that prosperity could finally become visible in everyday life. Drivers did not buy the Eldorado Biarritz simply for comfort. They bought it for the entrance it created. Today, luxury often hides behind minimalism and quiet design. In the 1950s, luxury wanted the whole neighborhood to know you had arrived before you even stepped out. 1959 Buick LeSabre. The 1959 Buick LeSabre looked like it had been designed after somebody spent the afternoon staring at rockets, jet aircraft, and science fiction magazines. Its massive grille, sweeping chrome, and dramatic rear fins gave it a futuristic personality that made ordinary suburban streets feel slightly connected to the space age. Families remembered cars like this because they turned simple errands into visible events. The LeSabre did not try to blend quietly into traffic. It wanted attention, admiration, and curiosity from anyone who saw it pull past the curb. Today, many cars are shaped for efficiency and aerodynamics first. Back then, standing out mattered almost as much as reliability. The LeSabre reflects a decade convinced the future should look dramatic enough to recognize instantly. 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser. The 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser felt like the kind of car a child in the 1950s would assume belonged in the future. It carried unusual roof styling, advanced controls, and enough gadgets to make ownership feel almost futuristic even during ordinary commutes. Drivers loved explaining its features to passengers because showing the car off became part of the experience itself. Some people thought the Turnpike Cruiser was overly complicated, while others admired how ambitious it dared to be. Today, innovation is hidden behind touchscreens and software updates. In the 1950s, innovation needed to be seen, touched, and demonstrated publicly. The Turnpike Cruiser reflects a country deeply excited by novelty, especially when novelty made everyday life feel futuristic. 1950 Nash Rambler Airflyte. The 1950 Nash Rambler Airflyte looked smaller and rounder than many of the giant American cars surrounding it. But families remembered it for something more important: usefulness. Its roomy interior, fold-flat seats, and practical layout made long drives feel comfortable in ways people genuinely noticed. During an era when road travel was becoming part of family culture, cars like this started turning transportation into shared experience rather than simple movement. Owners often describe the Rambler as personal rather than flashy. Today, spaciousness is engineered subtly through interior packaging. Back then, comfort felt visible the second you opened the door. The Airflyte reflects a moment when cars were becoming part living room, part vacation tool, and part family memory machine. 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. The 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham represented the absolute edge of American automotive excess at the end of the decade. Hand-built details, stainless steel roof trim, rich materials, and extravagant styling turned the car into something closer to a rolling symbol than ordinary transportation. Most Americans would never own one, but that almost made it more fascinating. People stared at it in magazines, dealerships, and traffic because it looked like wealth transformed into machinery. The Eldorado Brougham did not apologize for being excessive. It celebrated excess openly. Today, luxury often signals restraint and efficiency. In the late 1950s, luxury still believed bigger meant better. The Brougham reflects an America confident enough to turn prosperity into theater and proud enough to display it in public. Taken together, these cars reveal something larger than automotive history. They show a version of America that believed ordinary life should feel exciting, visible, and full of possibility. Families accepted giant fins, strange gadgets, dramatic styling, and mechanical excess because the culture itself was optimistic about the future. Today, cars are quieter, smoother, and designed to disappear into convenience. Back then, they were meant to announce themselves before they even reached the driveway. And maybe that is why these machines still stay in people's memories. They remind Americans of a time when the future was not hidden behind screens and software. It was loud, shiny, oversized, and impossible not to notice.